Tom Walker stared at his data screen, his eyes growing wide as the encrypted files downloaded to his personal tablet. The soft blue glow of the research station's lights reflected off his tired face. 3 years of working as a xenobiologist on Outpost 7 had taught him to follow his instincts, and right now, those instincts were screaming that something wasn't right. The classified council reports had caught his attention during a routine data sweep. References to something called the Red Death kept appearing in heavily redacted documents, always accompanied by urgent warning symbols. In his 5 years since Earth joined the Galactic Council, he had never seen such high-level security protocols. Another late night, Walker. The sudden voice made him jump. It was just Bill, the night shift security officer, making his rounds. "You know me," Tom replied with a forced smile, casually sliding his tablet under some papers. "Someone has to catalog all these alien bacteria samples." Bill nodded and continued his patrol, his footsteps echoing down the curved corridor. Tom waited until the sound faded before pulling his tablet back out. The download was complete. As he began reading, his professional curiosity turned to disbelief. According to the files, an entire solar system had been placed under quarantine. Not because of a virus, or a weapon, or any of the usual reasons, but because of a species so dangerous that the Council had voted unanimously to isolate them forever. "This can't be right," Tom muttered, scrolling through incident reports. The descriptions painted a picture of massive predatory beings with natural armor plating and enhanced strength, but something about the reports felt off. The dates didn't line up, and the witness accounts seemed contradictory. A soft beep from his workstation interrupted his thoughts. The station's long-range sensors had picked up something unusual, a signal coming from the direction of the quarantine zone. Tom quickly cross-referenced the coordinates with the classified files. The signal's origin matched perfectly with the restricted system. He shouldn't investigate. The penalties for breaching quarantine protocols were severe. Earth's relatively new membership in the Council was already fragile, and any violation could have serious consequences. The smart thing would be to report it and let his superiors handle it. Tom looked at the signal data again. It wasn't random. There was a clear pattern, the kind that suggested intelligence. If there was even a chance that the Council had made a mistake. "Computer, begin signal analysis," he commanded, his voice barely above a whisper. "Compare pattern against known communication formats." The computer hummed softly as it worked. Tom paced his small lab, running his hands through his short brown hair. He had always been told his curiosity would get him into trouble. His old professor used to say he was too willing to question authority, but questioning things had also led to some of xenobiology's biggest breakthroughs. The computer chimed. "Analysis complete. Signal pattern matches basic mathematical sequences. High probability of artificial origin." Tom's heart raced. Mathematical sequences were a universal sign of intelligence. Whatever was sending that signal wasn't just some mindless predator. It was trying to communicate. Making his decision, Tom began downloading the signal data to his research vessel's navigation system. He would need to be careful. The station's security systems tracked all ship movements, but he had learned a few tricks for flying under the radar. As he prepared for his unauthorized expedition, Tom thought about Earth's own history. How many times had fear and misunderstanding led to terrible mistakes? How many cultures have been wrongly labeled as savage or dangerous, simply because they were different? The classified files had mentioned that the quarantine was implemented 300 years ago, long before humans joined the Council. Perhaps it was time for a fresh perspective. Perhaps it took a species that had learned from its own mistakes to recognize when history was repeating itself. Tom logged out of his workstation and headed for the docking bay. He knew he was risking everything. His career, possibly even Earth's standing in the Council. But if he was right, if there was more to this story than centuries of fear and prejudice, someone had to find out the truth. He had no way of knowing that his decision that night would change not just his life, but the entire balance of power in the galaxy. Tom's small research vessel shuddered as it dropped out of faster-than-light travel. The quarantine zone lay ahead, marked by old warning beacons that blinked red against the darkness of space. His ship's computer kept flashing warning messages, but he ignored them, focusing instead on following the mysterious signal. Just a little closer, he whispered to himself, carefully guiding his ship between two dormant sensor arrays. The Council's quarantine technology was old, and he had studied its weaknesses well. Suddenly, all his screens went dark. The engine made a horrible grinding sound, then fell silent. Emergency lights cast an eerie red glow throughout the cabin. No, Tom muttered, frantically working the controls. Nothing responded. His ship drifted helplessly, pulled by the gravity of a nearby asteroid belt. Through the viewport, he could see a large mining facility built into one of the bigger asteroids. It looked abandoned, probably left behind when the quarantine was put in place. The ship's emergency thrusters gave him just enough control to aim for the facility's landing bay. The landing was rough, more of a controlled crash than anything else. Metal screeched against metal as his vessel finally came to a stop. Tom checked his environment suit's seals and grabbed his emergency pack. The facility might have air, but he wasn't going to risk it. He had to find a way to fix his ship and get out before anyone noticed he was missing from the research station. The landing bay was huge, designed for large mining ships. His footsteps echoed as he walked, the sound bouncing off empty walls. Old mining equipment lay scattered about, covered in decades of space dust. The air pressure gauge on his suit showed that the facility still maintained an atmosphere. At least the life support systems were working. A loud crash from deeper inside the facility made him freeze. Something had fallen, or been pushed over. He wasn't alone. Common sense told him to run back to his ship and wait for rescue. But the same curiosity that had brought him here pushed him forward. He took out his handheld scanner and followed the sound. The scanner led him to what looked like an old storage area. The door was half open, stuck in its track. As he squeezed through, his light beam fell on something that made his blood run cold. It was exactly like the classified files had described. At least 3 meters tall, with dark red armor-like plates covering its body. Massive claws that could tear through metal. A head that reminded him of Earth's ancient predators, with eyes that seemed to glow in the darkness. A Red Death, a member of the species that had terrified the galaxy so much that they'd been locked away for centuries. The creature saw him. Tom's legs wouldn't move. Every survival instinct screamed at him to run, but he stood frozen as the being slowly turned to face him. Then something unexpected happened. Instead of attacking, the creature tilted its head, much like a curious dog. It made a series of clicking sounds that seemed almost gentle. Tom's xenobiologist training kicked in. The movement wasn't aggressive. The posture wasn't threatening. This was the behavior of an intelligent being trying to appear non-threatening. Slowly, very slowly, Tom raised his empty hands to show he wasn't armed. The creature mimicked his gesture, raising its own clawed hands. "You're not what they said you were, are you?" Tom said out loud, though he knew the being couldn't understand him. The creature reached for something on its side, some kind of device. It pressed a few buttons, and a rough translation came out in basic galactic standard. "Welcome. Long time since, new friend." Tom's mouth fell open. They had translation technology. They weren't mindless beasts. They were an advanced species. The beam touched its chest and made a sound that Tom's own translator picked up as swift. It was introducing itself. "I'm Tom," he replied, still amazed. "Tom Walker." Swift's eyes seemed to brighten. "Tom Walker brave. Others run. Others shoot. Tom Walker stays." As Tom stood there, in an abandoned mining facility at the edge of forbidden space, talking with a being that was supposed to be a mindless killer, he realized that he had stumbled onto something much bigger than he had imagined. This wasn't just about discovering the truth anymore. This was about correcting a terrible mistake that had lasted for centuries. He just hoped he would live long enough to tell everyone about it. The abandoned mining facility's control room hummed with restored power. Tom sat across from Swift, their size difference making the scene look almost comical. The massive being had helped him repair some of the old systems, showing surprising technical knowledge. "Your people built all this?" Tom asked, gesturing at the complex machinery Swift had easily fixed. The translation device between them converted his words into the clicking sounds of Swift's language. "Yes, we are builders, explorers." Swift's translated voice carried a hint of sadness. Before the fear came. Tom pulled out his tablet and showed Swift the classified files he'd downloaded. The being's eyes narrowed at the images showing their species as mindless killers. "These reports," Tom said, "they don't match what I'm seeing. They say your kind attacks without reason, that you're just animals." Swift stood up and walked to a dusty viewport. Stars twinkled in the darkness beyond. "We made mistakes too. When other species first came to our worlds, we looked scary to them. Some shot at us in fear. We defended ourselves." The massive creature turned back to Tom. "But we never attacked first. Never." Tom nodded slowly. It made sense. The stalker's natural armor and impressive size would seem threatening to most species. Fear had led to violence, violence to more fear, and eventually to the quarantine. "Show me," Tom said suddenly. "Show me who your people really are." Swift's expression changed in a way Tom was learning to read as happiness. The beam moved to a computer terminal, claws moving with surprising delicacy over the keys. The facility's old screens came to life with images and videos. Tom watched in amazement. The recording showed vast cities with beautiful architecture, schools filled with young stalkers learning science and art, ships exploring distant stars. Everything he saw went against what the Council claimed about them. "This is incredible," Tom breathed. "Your civilization, it's advanced. Peaceful. Why didn't you try to tell the Council?" "We tried. Many times." Swift pulled up more records, sent messages, tried to explain. "But fear is strong. Easier to lock away what you fear than understand it." A beeping sound interrupted them. Tom checked his communicator and felt his heart sink. The research station had noticed his absence. Soon, they would track his ship. "I have to get this information out," Tom said urgently. "The galaxy needs to know the truth. But my ship's still damaged, and..." Swift raised a massive hand. "I help. Know much about ships. Together, we fix." Over the next few hours, Tom witnessed firsthand the technical skills Swift had mentioned. The stalker's knowledge of engineering far surpassed his own. They worked together repairing his ship's systems, and Tom found himself fascinated by how those huge claws could handle delicate components with perfect precision. As they worked, Swift shared more about stalker culture. Their species valued knowledge above all else. Their fearsome appearance had evolved to survive their harsh homeworld, but their society had grown far beyond simple survival. "Why trust me?" Tom asked as they finished the repairs. "After everything other species did to yours." Swift's translation came through with what sounded like a laugh. "You different. You see with mind, not eyes. Like ancient stalker saying, truth hides behind fear's shadow." Tom smiled. "We have similar sayings on Earth. Don't judge a book by its cover." "Your people, humans," Swift said thoughtfully. "Young species, yes, but wise in some ways. You question. You look deeper." A warning light flashed in the facility. Long-range sensors showed Council ships approaching the quarantine zone. They must have detected the power signature from the facility. "They're coming," Tom said grimly. "I need to leave. But Swift, I promise I'll find a way to help your people. This isn't right." Swift placed one massive hand gently on Tom's shoulder. "No, you will. But be careful. Some truth's dangerous to those who profit from lies." As Tom prepared to leave, Swift gave him a data crystal. "Our true history, our culture, our science. Show them who we really are. Tom carefully stored the crystal in his suit. He had come looking for answers about a dangerous species. Instead, he had found new friends and a mission that could change the galaxy. Looking back at Swift one last time, Tom knew that the real challenge was just beginning. Changing minds would be harder than repairing any ship, but someone had to take the first step. Tom sat in his small office on the research station, his eyes burning from hours of studying the data Crystal Swift had given him. He had made it back just in time, creating a story about engine trouble to explain his absence. Now, 3 days later, what he discovered in the stalker records kept him awake at night. "Computer, play historical record number 47 again," he commanded softly. The holographic display showed a peaceful first contact scene from 300 years ago. Stalker ships, elegant despite their size, approaching a Council diplomatic vessel. Everything seemed fine until the Council ship suddenly opened fire. The Stalker's defensive response was labeled as an unprovoked attack in official records. "Stop playback," Tom ordered, rubbing his tired eyes. He had found dozens of similar incidents. Each time, the story was the same. Fear led to violence. Violence led to misunderstanding, and misunderstanding became official history. A knock at his door made him jump. "Come in," he called, quickly hiding the crystal. Bill, the security guard, stepped inside. "You okay, Walker? You've been holed up in here for days." "Just busy with research," Tom replied, trying to sound casual. "Hey, Bill, you worked in the Council archives before this post, right?" 20 years in the Central Archives. Boring job, but great retirement plan. Bill chuckled. Tom saw an opportunity. "Ever run across anything about the Red Death quarantine?" Bill's smile faded. "That's restricted information, but—" He hesitated, then lowered his voice. Something never sat right about those files. Too many gaps. Too many contradictions. "What if," Tom said carefully, "someone had proof that the whole quarantine was based on lies?" Bill stared at him for a long moment. Finally, he closed the door and sat down. "Show me." Over the next hour, Tom shared carefully selected pieces of Swift's data. He watched Bill's face change from skepticism to shock, then to anger. "This can't be real," Bill whispered. "The Council, they wouldn't." "Fear makes people do terrible things," Tom said. "But we can fix this. I need access to the original quarantine records. The complete files." Bill shook his head. "Those are sealed. Highest security clearance. You worked there for 20 years. You must know a way." The old security guard was quiet for a long time. "There might be a way. The old backup systems, they were never fully integrated with the new security protocols." He pulled out his own tablet. "I'm probably going to lose that retirement plan for this." Together, they worked through the night, Bill's knowledge of the archive systems proving invaluable. As classified files appeared on their screens, a dark pattern emerged. The original Council members who ordered the quarantine had hidden agendas. The Stalker's home system was rich in rare minerals. Their advanced technology threatened certain Council members' economic interests. Fear of their appearance provided a convenient excuse. "Look at this," Tom pointed to a document. Private companies bought mining rights to the quarantine zone. They'd been stealing resources from the Stalker's system for centuries. "And this," Bill added, pulling up another file. Reports of Stalker technological achievements were deliberately suppressed. Their faster-than-light drive designs, their medical discoveries, all classified as too dangerous to share. Tom sat back, feeling sick. They buried an entire civilization, not because they were dangerous, but because they were advanced, because they were different. "What are you going to do?" Bill asked. "I have to tell someone. Earth's Council representatives, maybe. They're new enough not to be part of this cover-up." Bill looked worried. "They'll try to stop you. The company's profiting from this, the Council members involved. They have too much to lose." "I know." Tom gripped the data crystal in his pocket. "But I made a promise. And humans, we're supposed to be better than this. We've faced our own prejudices, learned from our mistakes. A warning flashed on their screens. Someone was accessing the archive logs, checking who had viewed the classified files. They know, Bill said grimly. They'll be coming soon. Tom quickly began copying essential files. Then we don't have much time. Bill, I understand if you want to deny helping me. The old guard smiled sadly. Son, I've spent 20 years watching people bury the truth. About time someone dug it up. He began deleting traces of their access. Go, do what you have to do. I'll slow them down. As Tom hurried from his office, the weight of the evidence heavy in his pocket, he knew there was no turning back. The truth about the stalkers would come out, no matter the cost. The real question was, who could he trust to help him reveal it? Red emergency lights flashed throughout the research station as security forces marched through the corridors. Tom ran, clutching his bag containing the crucial evidence. Bill's warning had come just in time. Council enforcement agents had arrived at the station. Stop right there, Walker. A voice boomed over the station speakers. This is Chief Security Officer Reeves. You are ordered to surrender immediately. Tom ducked into a maintenance shaft, his heart pounding. Bill had bought him some time by scrambling the station's internal sensors, but it wouldn't last long. He needed to reach the communication center. His personal communicator buzzed. A message from Earth's Ambassador Rogers. Whatever you're doing, stop. The Council is threatening to revoke Earth's membership. Don't make this worse. Tom ignored the message. They didn't understand what was at stake. Decades of theft, lies, and prejudice had buried an entire civilization. He couldn't stay quiet. The maintenance shaft led him to the lower levels. As he climbed down, he heard voices above. Check every level. He has classified data. Shoot if necessary. But the data must be recovered. They were willing to kill for this secret. Tom reached the communication center's back entrance, using the emergency access codes Bill had given him. Inside, banks of computers hummed quietly. Don't move. A voice came from behind him. Tom turned to see Ambassador Rogers herself, holding a stun weapon. You've caused an interstellar incident, Walker. The Council is in chaos. Good, Tom said firmly. They should be. Look at this before you stop me. He slowly reached into his bag and pulled out a datapad. The truth about the stalkers, about why they were really quarantined. The ambassador's hand wavered. We have 12 hours before Earth faces sanctions. Major trading contracts canceled. Our colonies cut off. All because you broke quarantine. Because I discovered the truth. Tom connected the datapad to a display screen. Watch. Images filled the screen. Peaceful stalker cities, their advanced technology, the real history of their encounters with the Council. Then came the documents showing the conspiracy, the stolen resources, the buried technologies. Ambassador Rogers lowered her weapon slowly. This can't be real. I met them. They're not monsters. They're a civilized species who look different enough to be feared. And certain council members use that fear to steal their worlds. The door burst open. Security forces rushed in, weapons raised. Chief Reeves stepped forward. Ambassador, step away from him. This is now a council security matter. Is it? Rogers asked, her voice cold. She hadn't taken her eyes off the evidence. Or is it a cover-up? The council has ordered all data destroyed and Walker arrested, Reeves insisted. Earth must comply or face consequences. Tom watched the ambassador closely. Everything depended on her next decision. Rogers straightened her shoulders. Send a message to Earth's council chamber. Priority 1. Attach all of Walker's data. Ambassador, don't. Reeves started. Earth fought its own battles against prejudice. Rogers cut him off. We learned that fear of differences leads to humanity's worst mistakes. She turned to face Reeves. We didn't join the Galactic Council to repeat those mistakes. You'll destroy Earth's future in the Council, Reeves warned. No, Rogers replied. We'll help build a better one. She faced her staff. Send the data. to Earth, to independent news networks, to everyone. Let the truth spread faster than they can bury it. Tom felt hope rise as the communication officers began transmitting. Screens lit up across the room, sending the evidence to thousands of locations. Reeves spoke urgently into his communicator. Lock down all communications. Too late, Tom said quietly. The truth is out there now. All of it. Warning sirens blared as more council ships appeared near the station. The next few hours would be dangerous. Earth had chosen truth over political safety, and there would be consequences. But as Tom watched the data spreading across the galaxy, he thought of Swift, waiting in that abandoned mining facility. Finally, after centuries of darkness, someone was shining a light on the truth. His communicator buzzed again. A message from Bill. They're coming for you. But you did it, kid. Now run. Tom looked at Ambassador Rogers. She nodded toward a side exit. Go. We'll handle the politics. You've done enough. As he slipped away from the communication center, Tom knew this was just the beginning. The real fight, changing centuries of fear and prejudice, was still ahead. But for the first time in 300 years, the stalkers had hope. And sometimes, that's all a revolution needs to begin. The Grand Council chamber buzzed with angry voices. Representatives from 100 worlds argued as Earth's evidence about the stalkers played on giant screens. Tom stood beside Ambassador Rogers, watching the chaos unfold. After 3 days of hiding and running, he finally had his chance to speak. Council leader Dax, a tall blue-skinned being, raised his hands for silence. This is an outrage. Earth has broken our most sacred quarantine laws. They must be punished. No, Tom stepped forward. The real outrage is what was done to the stalkers. And I can prove it. The chamber doors opened. Everyone gasped as Swift entered, ducking to fit through the doorway. Guards raised their weapons, but Ambassador Rogers stepped between them and the stalker. This is Swift, Tom announced. A scientist, an engineer, and my friend. The being you all feared for centuries is here to speak. The chamber erupted again. Some representatives fled their seats. Others shouted for Swift's arrest. But many, especially the younger species in the council, watched with interest. Swift walked slowly to the center of the chamber, careful not to make any sudden moves. The translation device hummed to life. I bring greetings, Swift's translated voice echoed through the room. And truth, if you will hear it. Why should we listen to a monster? Someone shouted. Ambassador Rogers stepped forward. Because Earth's history taught us something valuable. When we fear what's different, when we let that fear rule us, we become the real monsters. She activated a new display, showing Earth's own history, images of human prejudice, war, and finally understanding and unity filled the screens. Humanity learned these lessons the hard way, Rogers continued. We fought ourselves over differences in appearance, in beliefs, in ways of life. But we grew. We learned. That's why we can see what you couldn't. Tom shared the evidence they had gathered. The secret mining operations in stalker territory, the suppressed technological advances, the real history of first contact. Your own records prove it, Tom said. The stalkers never attacked first. They defended themselves, yes. But the real violence came from fear and greed. Council leader Dax stood up angrily. This changes nothing. Earth has violated our laws. I call for an immediate vote to expel them from the council and reinforce the quarantine. Swift moved forward, towering over Dax. But instead of attacking, the stalker slowly knelt down to be at eye level with the council leader. Look at me, Swift said softly. Look with clear eyes, not fearful ones. We are different, yes. We look scary to you, yes. But we think. We feel. We create. Like you. The chamber grew quiet. Swift's gentle words had more impact than any angry speeches. Young representatives from newly joined worlds started speaking up. If we were wrong about the stalkers, what else are we wrong about? How can we call ourselves civilized if we imprison an entire species without cause? Earth is right. We must be better than our fears. The vote to expel Earth failed. Instead, a new motion was proposed, a complete review of the stalker quarantine, with immediate humanitarian contact to be established. Council leader Dax and his supporters stormed out, threatening consequences, but they were now the minority. The truth had done what centuries of fear could not. It had brought change. Tom watched as Swift began speaking with curious representatives, answering questions, sharing stories. The fear was starting to fade, replaced by curiosity and wonder. Ambassador Rogers touched Tom's shoulder. Earth will face trade sanctions from some worlds. We'll lose some allies. Are you sure this was worth it? Tom looked at Swift, now showing a group of fascinated representatives some stalker technology on a datapad. Look at them, he said. Yesterday they were monsters in a cage. Today they're teaching us new things. That's what humanity is supposed to stand for, looking past fear to find truth. The ambassador smiled. Well said. She looked at her notes. The real work starts tomorrow. Dismantling the quarantine, setting up diplomatic relations, dealing with those who profited from the stalkers' imprisonment. Will Earth really stand with the stalkers? Tom asked. All the way, she replied firmly. Someone once said that courage isn't about being fearless. It's about doing what's right despite your fears. Today, humanity proved we learned that lesson. As the chamber filled with excited conversation and plans for the future, Tom realized something important. Sometimes the bravest thing isn't fighting monsters, but realizing they were never monsters at all. 1 year had passed since the dramatic council meeting. Tom stood at the observation deck of the new Joint Species Research Center, watching ships come and go. The facility, built on the edge of former stalker quarantine space, represented everything he had fought for. Below him, a stalker science vessel was docking. Its sleek design, a mix of their natural architecture and modern technology, still drew attention from other ships in the area. But now the looks were of admiration, not fear. Thinking deep thoughts, friend Tom. Swift's familiar voice came from behind. Tom turned to see his friend ducking through the doorway, carrying a large datapad. Just remembering, Tom replied. Hard to believe how much has changed. They walked together to the center's main laboratory. Inside, teams of scientists from 20 different species worked alongside stalkers. The sight still amazed Tom. Researchers who a year ago would have run in terror now eagerly collaborated with their stalker colleagues. Latest medical results are promising, Swift said, showing Tom the datapad. Our natural healing abilities, combined with Earth's stem cell research, we can help many species now. The medical breakthroughs were just the beginning. Once the stalkers shared their suppressed technologies, advances came quickly. Their efficient energy systems were helping solve pollution problems on dozens of worlds. Their construction techniques were revolutionizing space station design. Ambassador Rogers is coming today, Tom mentioned. The Council's final vote on full stalker membership is next week. Swift made a clicking sound that Tom now recognized as laughter. Some still oppose, still fear, but fewer each day. They were interrupted by a group of school children. A mix of humans, stalkers, and other species, touring the facility. Instead of showing fear, the children waved excitedly at Swift. A young stalker child broke from the group to show Swift a drawing. Look, I drew us all together, the child said proudly through their translator. Swift knelt down carefully, examining the colorful picture showing children of different species playing together. Beautiful, Swift said softly. The future, drawn by its builders. Tom watched the scene, remembering his own fear when he first saw a stalker. Now, young ones were growing up without that fear, seeing only potential friends who looked different. The facility's alerts chimed softly. Ambassador Rogers' ship was arriving. As they headed to the diplomatic section, they passed walls lined with images showing the past year's progress. The first open stalker city welcoming visitors, joint scientific missions, cultural exchange programs. Not all good news, though, Tom said quietly. Those corporations that were stealing from your systems during quarantine, most of them got away with it. Yes, Swift agreed. But their power is broken. Truth broke it. Some crimes go unpunished, but future ones prevented. That matters more. They reached the diplomatic hall just as Rogers was entering. She looked tired but satisfied. The votes are in, she announced without preamble. Preliminary count shows full membership will pass. The quarantine will be officially ended, all restrictions lifted. Tom felt a weight lift from his shoulders. It was really over. The lies, the fear, the isolation, all ended. There's more, Rogers continued. The Council is creating a new position. Director of Interspecies Relations. They want you, Tom. Both of you, actually, as co-directors. Tom looked at Swift in surprise. His friend's expression was unreadable to most, but Tom had learned to see the subtle signs of emotion. We accept, Swift said. Together, we show what possible when fear falls away. Perfect timing, too, Rogers smiled. Wait until you see the latest applications. 3 more isolated species have requested contact. Seems your story gave them courage to reach out. As they discussed the details, Tom watched more ships arriving through the window. Each one carried beings who had chosen to overcome their fears, to learn instead of hide, to reach out instead of push away. You know, he said thoughtfully, when I first broke quarantine, I thought I was just investigating a mystery I never imagined. Swift placed a gentle claw on his shoulder. You saw truth behind fear, helped others see too. Small choices, big changes. Like a human befriending the galaxy's most lethal predator. Tom grinned. No, Swift clicked in amusement. Like a feared predator learning friendship from a human. Outside, more ships arrived, bringing more chances for understanding. The future wasn't perfect. Prejudice and fear never vanish completely. But every new arrival, every shared discovery, every child growing up seeing different species as friends instead of monsters, was a step toward something better. Sometimes the bravest thing anyone can do is take that first step.